So hello everyone, welcome to this episode of ideaXme Rich Connectedness. And for today, we're gonna talk about music, science, and spirituality. And my today guest is the wonderful Estas Tonne. I couldn't help myself but just to think about your music as someone who embodies rich connectedness. And as a tradition of ideaXme podcast, I'm gonna start to give the floor to you by asking you about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? How did you grow up? And a little bit of information about who is the man behind Estas Tonne.
There are many. It's like behind everyone there is so many, and of course there is a personal story, there is a evolution of personality, so to say, because the persona I've been 10 years ago, or even a week ago, it's not the same as sitting here and talking to you, so there is some sort of ongoing life experience happening, just as to everyone else, So yes, I was born in a country that doesn't exist anymore, and then I lived in a country that I never could assimilate with, and then I lived in many other places. But my mother tongue is Russian, so it's kind of been the setting for my life, which is kind of interesting because I don't live in a Russian-speaking country. But that's my main language, so that's definitely been influencing the personality, right? And also musical tastes as well, perhaps, because to certain things I used to listen when I was a kid, it would be weird for somebody to know what actually I was listening to, because I didn't grow up on Led Zeppelin, or I didn't grow up on some rock stuff, or some world kind of music stuff. I grew up on a completely different music that comes from Russian jails, so where bards were expressing their passions and pains and sorrows and joys and love and celebrations as well, so that's probably all of it kind of forms the character, which would be playing certain music that would be also influenced by meetings and experiences and everything what life has to offer, so definitely behind the personality, behind the man named Estas Tonne, there is so much, just like behind everyone else. Yeah. And just I'm happen to be on stage. In the older days, I used to be more on the street, which was more naked, because it's a very raw situation when you're on the street in front of people. But on the stage, it's still that same rawness. I still keep doing just the same as I am, right? In the same time, it brought a more mystical space to it, because it's a stage, right? That's what people love to come and experience, some sort of unveiling secret of life when we go to theater and we go to see certain performance as well. Did I answer all of that in a little bits, or there is something more?
Yes. I think the question of who are you, I think is a big question, and I think what you're saying, that there behind everyone there are many. I think that's really right. And I think in this today time, in this society that we live in, we tend to limit ourselves with just some limited version of ourselves. And when you're saying that behind you there are so many people, there are so many versions of yourself, I think it gives a really an open-ended dimension to the person that you are, which I think allows you to be a process of becoming.
I've been exploring the spirituality for a long time, and I've been exploring all kind of practices as well. And where I am at right now, I feel like with all the metaphysical aspects of ourselves and the spiritual aspects of ourselves, there is a physical aspect of ourselves, which is very important, because that's why we are here, to experience the physicality of it as well. And many of us forgetting that, but that this physical instrument is an essential for this experience, right? So it's like at the moment where I am at, I'm more experiencing the physical aspect of it. You know, of course, I can say yes, we are the immortal souls traveling through times, and and all kind of that kind of spiritual approach to it all, which is so much of it all going on everywhere. But I feel there is also an important aspect of life is to be on the ground fully, feel the earth under our feet, to feel this body with all its imperfections and difficulties sometimes, and unease as well. Kind of really being in the skin of a body. So that's what I am right now. So of course we can speak about the spirituality and the music and all of that, but that's very airy. All of that is super airy. Right now I feel like I'm getting into the more grounding aspect of myself, which is really interesting and exciting at the moment for me. And because all of those beautiful things, they are in the air. Of course we are it, but it's also so important to be really here in this body. So yeah, I just had to do a little detour about my current state of being.
That's a really interesting, I think, detour, because it reminds me of this saying by Ramdas, that he says, you don't want to become too spiritual that you lose your own address. You want to know where you're from still. And I think it's such an important aspect of, I think, any spiritual practice, to allow you to really be here now in this life. Like yourself, I've been very interested in exploring different dimensions of spirituality, and I couldn't help myself but to realize this missing element of physicality in spiritual practice. As you also mentioned, you don't want to become too airy, you don't want to become too much in your head in the clouds and not losing your feet on the ground. And I think what you're saying, that is, now you're exploring this dimension of yourself that exists in both dimensions of metaphysical and physical, is such an interesting episode. I think many people are really trying to realize the ways in which they can channel themselves through this really complex, I think, reality of physics and being. So I really appreciate the point that you're making, that, and also this consciousness that you're bringing.
You see, I kind of look at it as an extreme of a pendulum. You know what I mean? It's like the pendulum have to go like really one side, another side, another side, another side, and then kind of finds its place. So I would feel, because even when you speak about spirituality with certain individuals, they would ask you, are you speaking about God, or are you speaking about religion, or are you speaking about this, or are you speaking about that? If you speak to a native person, native person, all of us kind of native, and all of us are kind of not at the same time. But if you speak for people from certain traditions, they would say, they would envision you speaking about a spirit world, right? If you speak to a modern day spiritual people, because why I say like that is because there is a lot of fluff going on in there, and we all have to go through it, because we have to figure out what is this game about, and we do know already, and we feel certain things just not really current for these times. Whatever was working 200-300 years ago, maybe it's not working today anymore. So there is upgrade going on in our perception and our understanding of even this word spirituality, right? So it could be as distorted as anything else, and it could be as beautiful as anything else, but again, I feel like with all of the flying, this is also a very important time to be kind of embracing all of the aspects of ourselves. Really important. Somehow I feel it for myself, of course. I cannot speak for everybody else. This is kind of my momentum. in this now.
Now, speaking of momentum, I personally a big fan of momentum because I use this terminology of tempo because I think there is certain momentum tempo in each person. Every one of us has his own timing. And I found a quote on your website on that you mentioned that life is breathing as music through each of us. While trusting our breath, we trust life to sing that very song, which is the reason why we all of us exist. So you see this life as an expression of music through each of us. How did you come to realize your own unique expression of music? When was the moment that you realized that this is my music, this is my way of expression?
I cannot even say that this is my music, because this is constantly I'm kind of trying to deliver to different people asking these questions, because every piece of music, every book, every creation would have countless participants in it. So we can say the author, yes, we kind of use these words in this reality. So just to kind of to have a link, like www.com or and so, so there is some sort of a home address to certain expression. We use that. I'm sorry, I have some visitors. That's actually a really good example. That's a really good example. Like, the post delivery just arrived. So it's the same. It's like an idea comes. Like an idea comes and we say, okay, so I delivered the idea, but the postman just delivered some sort of idea, which would evolve in a certain expression we would have a name to, right? So somebody delivers certain creation to this world. Should never forget that there are so many that are participating in this creation or that creation. But it would come through a certain life experience of a creator, right? So because let's say somebody would copy certain expression and they would try to adopt that creation to a new version, okay, so to say. And this could be beautiful also, this could be different also, this could be very the same also. It depends on the personality trying to re-express that, right? But this is just a language of this world, I would say. Somebody comes and say, this is my thing. Yes, this is more like a reflection of my stream, which is unique because there's a life story there behind. Life story behind every creation. And so many characters that are participating in that life story. In every sentence, in every note, in every jest. It's just we're not so much unconscious of it. But I quite often remember where this or that phrase comes from. Where actually, what did I feel in that moment when it came? There is a certain repetition to it and evolution of it and variation to it every time, for sure. But there is always certain sentiment to it as well. What did I feel in that moment when it appeared first time? And it's never ending. This is what is incredible about that.
So we are all kind of processes ever expressing ourselves, right? Based on this philosophy, we're basically a part of bigger reality.
I mean, imagine when we think of a trauma, let's say, of certain traumas that we carry through life, right? We would be dealing with the world based on a certain experiences we've had, maybe in certain timeline.
Mhm.
And we would be quite unconsciously replaying certain emotions, you know, and what is healing is that when we can see that, you know, so it's the same comes to everything else. It's like how sooner we can see ourselves.
And do you think that, like, we're speaking of trauma? I'm a resilient scientist. I deal a lot with healing from trauma, and I really appreciate you bringing up this concept of the sooner we can see the trauma in ourselves or in our experience or in our consciousness. How do you think we can create a culture of observation? How can we allow this observation or this realization to happen? Because I presume that when you say that we're a part of this bigger reality, then we would need some sort of reflection.
You know, I can give an example which I experienced just recently. I went for a retreat for a few weeks, and I've had two parts to this retreat. Apart from it's been really one of the most incredible kind of life-changing retreats I've had. And it's still ongoing. I'm still kind of exploring the consequences of it.
Mm-hmm.
But there were two parts of it. And there were many parts which I didn't stay for. But for me personally, there was first week Estas without the telephone. And a second week Estas with the telephone.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a dear friend, and we were just speaking about what we have been experiencing there. And she said, wow, it's been really amazing to meet Estas without the telephone, because there was a dramatic change on the second week when I switched on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And why I'm saying that, it's basically to see ourselves and to really be in this moment of what is happening. It's kind of like go back to those times that we didn't have these devices. And I feel that's part of this extreme of a pendulum. You know, it's somehow, we cannot deny the fact we have all this incredible technology right now here, but we also have to learn how to use it properly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because for the first week I was fully into the moment of what's been going on, and I do live like that when I'm playing, when I'm fully like, how would I say, dissolved into the creativity, right? But then also comes a moment when, you know, I'm a guy with the telephone, I'm a guy checking messages, or I'm a guy who's reading emails, or I'm a guy writing to somebody, or I'm a guy who is going through social media just like everybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is also in other times when I'm completely just in this quiet moment, when I can feel what's going on actually in my body, or where can I receive these silent messages that have been sent all the time, right? We're just busy. All of us are just so busy with all kind of devices, all kind of stories, all kind of stuff that is going on. Everyone. It's you know, it's a 21st century phenomenon which we have to go through, because it's not going to get less. It's going to get more intense.
It's very interesting that you brought up the concept of technology and its role in allowing us to somehow observe ourselves as an external, as an exterior within the cyberspace, within the social media or other platforms, but also as a way of really distracting us from the reality of this moment. And also you mentioned I think quite rightly, that in 21st century we cannot live without technology. And I think for people like yourself, artists, that they utilize technology for communicating their music, I think it's such a interesting dilemma, I would say, to create a balance between life without technology and life with technology. And I know that many people are really looking for creating a mindful approach to technology to really help people to not be addicted to information and checking their phones. So what is your
I mean, do you know this image? You know, when sometimes this image circulates around internet, and you see there are two photos. One of them is from modern times when there is a group of people, people sitting on somewhere in the subway, they will be sitting in the park somewhere. Everybody is looking in the telephone, and there is another image of people sitting there with the newspapers from 1950s.
Mhm.
Or from 1960s. Everyone sits with a newspaper. So in a way, you know, and then what? In the older days, they probably also came up with some sort of psychological problem that humanity has, that everyone is totally into, you know, into being distracted. You see, so there is no difference of it. It just now it became more. Now it's more instant. Now it's more global than local, right? The interconnection is going on wide all over. But it's part of this human phenomena, I think. You know, there's always been times we've been addicted to something, all of us.
So I am very kind of excited when you talk about this before and after images. Like I went to visit a practitioner, a doctor, and I noticed that in a waiting room there are many magazines. Or they give you magazine to just look at them, and it seems as if we have a problem of waiting. We know that it's difficult to wait for something, and as you say, we kind of found a way to bypass the idea of waiting. But as you also like mentioned, that the Estas without telephone was more present to receive downloads and messages from the upper field, especially as an artist, as someone whose life is so intertwined with creativity. So do you think that we somehow misunderstood or misinterpret the idea of to wait for something, wait for a message, with this idea of waiting is bad, or we assigned a kind of value emotion to it?
You know, I remember the times when I was a kid, and I would have to go and wait for my friend, let's say, and like for my buddy, you know, from the streets, you know, from the school, and I would go to wait for somebody, and I would kind of knock on the door. No telephones, no iPhones, of course, no cell phones. You know, we are talking about quite a few minutes ago. It was before. So you know, I wait in kind of like on the stairway of the building, or I wait outside. Um, it was just the same. I mean, for a kid, 10 years old, to wait, to sit calmly waiting for somebody, it's a torture in a way. You know, it's kind of like a wow. It's like there's so much to go explore. You know, I could go and climb the tree and eat some cherries in the meantime. You know. So it's the same thing. I think it's a matter of learning that from the earlier days. Maybe if I would have certain guidance in that time of learning the patience. I don't know. Some days I could wait properly. Some days I couldn't. You know, it's this. I think this is part of being human. I don't know. This is. I'm sure the psychologists will find many ways to explain that phenomena, but this is part of being human thing, you know. And the thing is that everything is amplified nowadays with the technological achievements, so to say. Uh, it's getting more intense, you know. So we cannot know yet where it takes us. You know, some would say this leads us to disaster. Some say it actually leads us to incredible possibilities, you know, but we actually don't know because it's so fresh. It's only about what, 25 years we have such intense worldwide network, right? It's like started like intensely started in about like probably 94. I remember using like these chat rooms.
Mhm.
It used to be called Mirk or something like that. And this is like 90s. This is mid 90s. So of course it's incredible and quite overwhelming at the same time. You know, it's part of this pendulum. I think we will figure out, you know, this younger generation that is right now, they don't even have such questions because they don't remember, they don't know times without this technology.
Mhm.
So there is an incredible development is happening right now. What for? Well, we will definitely see it. We already see it now. It's very fast, super fast, bright minds that will be creating incredible things. But you know, it's this is where all the aspects are coming in. You know, all the spiritual aspects and also the physical aspects and also technological aspects and creative aspects. All of it are creative aspects, but there is also health is very really important and food system. And I mean, it's mad. You know, all of a sudden you have to think of so many things at once, which quite amazing because. Um, it was very different just some years ago. You know, it's almost like our operating system really gets upgraded. You know, it gets more and more upgrades, so we can perceive more and deal with way more.
This is very true. I think we're in this age of multi-sensory experience of reality. We're kind of receiving all this big data of everything at the same time, and somehow I think we've never expected such degree of information to be flooded to all of us. And I think as you say, also is a great time of maybe exponential creativity and awakening, because I'm sure that when too many people are exposed to too much information at the same time, there would be a critical point where everyone start to see the same reality. So I think somehow the pendulum that you're speaking about would arrive to an equilibrium in a quite interesting ways.
I I'm not sure actually about this whole awakening phenomena. If that is the, I mean, we probably all of us know that this is not like the final destination,
Mm-hmm.
right? Awakening. I mean, what does it mean, awakening? You know, it's kind of like when you wake up, right, and then you just speak of it like waking up in the morning, right, and then you feel, oh, something is there, not really working properly, right, or there is like a muscle is really tight,
Mm-hmm.
or uh, you have more perception in a way of the moment, right, and then you have to deal with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that the awakening happens and then, oops, life is completely different. You're very changed and you're fully started from a fresh blank page. No, I would feel, I can see that it's way more complicated. We all of a sudden to have to deal with way more.
Yeah, I think it reminds this, I think, proverb in Zen that before awakening you chop woods, and after awakening you do the same. You still chop the woods, because in a way you're basically in the same situation. You're in the same body. You don't change anything. It's just a point of reference would change, and that would allow you to see more of reality that maybe you're not even prepared for. So
Well, if that already happened, then you are prepared for it. That's already, you know, it just doesn't happen for nothing, you know.
mhm.
It just means that we have to deal with way more than we were able in ourselves to see and feel, you know, because when we open up more, we can feel more, we can see more, which means all of it, not just like a whole nice celebration and on the beach, you know.
Mm.
Becomes more complicated. Beautiful, intense, that's what part of it. The intensity, it's part of it. But yeah, still dealing with all kind of other things as well.
And that reminds me of one of the sayings of Thomas Hewell, one of today's modern mystics, that he says, awakening is not a sofa. When you arrive, when you awaken, don't expect to be very comfortable sitting on a sofa and just be very rosy and everything is so perfect. In fact, you're exposed to such intensity of experience that you would be challenged to ground yourself in the physicality of things, to really go up, transcend, but also descend, to be able to integrate the lessons that you have learned from the experience of awakening to the daily life, the daily mundane routines of life. But I think it's such a big, I think, opportunity for opening up to more of life. At the same time, I think making new connections with different people, because I think that would allow you to expand.
Which is happening anyway, all the time.
Mm.
It's just how busy we are that we can see, you know, that same person who've been passing by every day we didn't see, and all of a sudden we noticed, you know, it's been there all the time. Or not, or maybe there is a new connections which are happening, you know. It's kind of like the new brain circuits which are being created.
Mhm.
And then you realize, wow, we've been in the same places, the same countries, in the same times, but you never met. But we, like, as potentials connections, we've been there all this time, but we
Mhm.
just never had the chance to meet.
Mhm.
um, yeah, this is what I see at the moment, that how busy and how available we are
Mhm.
to life, because all these great devices, they're beautiful. Without these devices we wouldn't be meeting right now, you know. So,
Exactly.
and we know it, you know, this is really incredible tools, but it seems like for us to find something we need to also get lost sometimes. Maybe that's the whole point, you know, to find a pathway out of a forest we need to be lost sometimes. That's the whole experience, maybe.
Yeah, getting lost to be found out. Because that's like, if we experience life as two extremes, how can you understand extreme unless you've been far too long towards one edge or the other, to really kind of find an equilibrium that doesn't necessarily mean in the middle, but something that
Yeah,
includes the darkness and the lightness of everything. So creating a balanced version of spirituality, technology, science, and all of these changes that are happening around.
physicality.
Yeah,
Yeah,
physical, grounding in this physicality. That is
physicality.
bringing me to this fascination that I have with your work, especially this Breath of Sound tour. That you have created such a rich connection with different artists around the world, and I've seen that you perform your art and music spontaneity on
Yeah,
spontaneous.
spontaneity. Yeah, spontaneously.
Yes,
Yeah.
this artist. How do you manage that? How do you build that degree of trust? Uh,
You need to ask them, because they get on this crazy train,
mhm.
and it's for them really to trust it, because we never do rehearsals.
Yes.
So that's kind of like every time I'm amazed by all these people. But you see, I don't go on stage with some hired musicians. I don't hire musicians to play, because I don't need that.
Mhm.
I played on the street for about 10 years, so I would be quite fulfilled with my own thing. Even though for somebody, as an artist, they would think, oh, well, the guitarist, he needs some other instruments. But I don't look at music this way. I don't look at the songs. I don't look at the um, technicality of it, which are all important aspects of any craft as well. But I'm also not really taking it as a craft, right? So for me, that's a pathway. That's a life path, So I'm also a guitar player, but I'm also a son. I'm also a friend. I'm also a nasty guy for somebody, whatever, but with all these musicians who I met and had this timeless connection, I would call it heart connection. I, without even thinking about it, I know it will happen on stage, or possibly not. Then we don't need to explore that, So pretty much everyone who gets who gets there with this in this space of sound journeys, it's incredible to watch, because of course we can speak of certain evolution of a story, let's say of a 2-hour trip or 2 and something hour trip. We can discuss certain places where maybe they would go in or maybe they will go out, or for this we do have some sort of little, I would call, guidelines on the way, but we cannot script everything anyway, because even though I look at it as a building without walls and doors and windows, it's just a beautiful building that it has columns that holding it together as a structure, right? Like a body, it needs to be there for life to experience it, be experienced. So what will happen in between, we don't know, and that's the freedom of it. I don't know if you were in Brussels. Yeah, you
Yes,
were in the
I had
Brussels.
this pleasure of observing you. I mean, it was unbelievable to. It was a moment of really, I think, one space, a bubble of experience was created, quite strangely, including everyone. So I think everyone in that space felt the inclusion that was created, I think, by maybe trust, or by.
Right. That's the primal thing. Actually, if I look into it, of course, there is a love aspect to it, for sure, and deep connection to the heart expression, But I don't know. Did you visit that one with Michelle Raji and Mudra? You were there when.
I visited the one that was a performance of a man and a woman. They
Yes,
danced together.
yeah, Michelle Raji and Mudra. Yeah. So we did 2 performances. So in Antwerp and Brussels. Actually, we are editing it now because it will go out soon. Because it's incredible to watch
Yeah.
especially when man and woman meet on stage in such a grace also, and quite transcendental meeting to watch that and experience that, because we kind of had a cue when they would enter, but how this will happen we never discuss, because that's a complete freedom of them. And as I know, they're masters of what they do. It doesn't need to be discussed. This kind of things, it belongs to the moment. Otherwise, it's all scripted, which is not interesting to me. I cannot do things like that. This is I have no interest in it to run by a script. But certain guidelines, they are important to keep certain
Scaffold experience.
kind of like to have that more into like an expression, to have certain form. Because if it's a festival, if it's all open, it's a different time zone. We can play for 3-5 hours, no problem, But when it's a concert hall, it's another dimension. So there we do need to play a little bit more with the form. But what will happen in it, That's the mystery. That's something I don't need to know.
This
But
is such an
everybody loves that.
this is such an
Yeah.
interesting, I think, aspects that I have been fascinated by, the unknown and the complexity of the moment. And as a scientist, we've been trained to think logically, to have the script, to follow the instruction. So in my own experience of exploring science, I realized that, in fact, when we're dealing with complexity of this world, if we really want to make change, we cannot really stick by the script. We cannot follow, and we cannot the script and expect the change to happen from point A to B and to C. So it's more of this self-organizing, really open-minded approach to today's world.
But not everyone is like that.
And that is the challenge. That is the question that I want to ask. That
But,
today's time.
but you see, how would I say it? Let's take an example of creating a festival.
Mhm.
Just an example. It can be anything. It can be a festival of any moment, right? But you take, let's say, 3 organizers. Just an example. You know, one is like fully open and super, how would I say, available to the moment, right? This organizer has to deal with all kind of artists, with the crowd coming, with logistics being taken care of, with food and you know. And if this organizer would not have some sort of a degree of organization, some sort of preparation, it would be a complete chaos, right? You take a guy who is completely in the under script, everything scripted out, every move has to be completely prepared and thought about, and literally script everything, including performances, including everything. That that wouldn't leave any space for an improvisation. You know, it wouldn't leave any space for even for any breath, actually, you know, because it's all kind of like scripted. So you go to see some shows and they look very beautiful, but every move is scripted. The musicians would be repeating the same ways, the same words they're saying every single time, same way, because everything is scripted. Why? Because it's working, right? So this is second example. Third example, it would be a balance of all these qualities. We need some sort of organization in this world. We also need an improvisation. It's these 2 elements are essential for anything. You know, it's some chaos is healthy, because out of some unpredictable chaos, something beautiful can be born.
Yes, like Nietzsche said that out of a chaos you can have a star.
Yeah, it's basically without this open space for possibility to arising, it's boring.
So you think that the way that you perform on stage uh, is a balanced version of uh, basically holding this space for creativity to emerge, or are you?
You know, I'm not saying, yeah, please finish it. Please finish your thought.
Do you think that, like, that the way that you perform somehow helps? There is a framework for this. Are you seeing any kind of framework emerging from this experience, because you've been to many different countries? And I think uh, given that the moment has this truth of being together, all hearts connecting together, are you seeing any pattern emerging from all this experience that you had through the?
Yes, for sure. Yes, for sure. Because I mean, let's not forget that my experience of playing about 10 years on the street, this is not something that you can buy. This is not something you can learn in the university. You know, this is something you have to go out there and experience yourself, because that would also develop a certain artistic expression based on a constant readiness for the unknown to happen, right? Because when you go set up on the street, you have no idea what will come away. You have no idea. You don't know what will come your way, you know? The police might come. The street gangs might come. The crazy neighbor might be throwing some eggs or tomatoes. Or, you know, there are multiple variations of what can happen, right? A brass band can come and set up right next to you and you cannot play, you know. So it's always constant readiness for anything to happen. You cannot script that, right? When I started to do more like a street festivals, which it was partially organized already, you know, that was more ease, because I kind of had a frame to express what I had to express, but it was already scheduled. So I knew I'm going to that location in 12 o'clock, that location I'm going in 3 o'clock, that location I'm going to 5 o'clock, and whatever, right? So it was already scripted and pretty much a thought been given to it already by organizers. So they would kind of set the foundation for every artist, even though sometimes could be 50, sometimes 100 artists performing all over the old towns of certain countries. Still, even though with all the thinking about it, there would be always something unpredictable happening. Anyway, in any case, right? So when it's on stage, maybe it's my case, but I think it's everybody's case. You know, it's anything can happen. You know, even though there is an incredible sound engineer, there is an incredible team running everything. There could be an explosion of sound. There could be 3 strings broken in the same moment. It could be lights go off. There could be anything. Still can happen. You know, it's like our desire to script everything down is based on the idea that we can minimize our stress instead of actually learning how to deal with stressful situations.
This is it's really bridging with what I discovered throughout my scientific career, that I realized, I mean, that in engineering domain, we're overly obsessed and too much focus on over engineering everything. So we want to optimize, make things faster, quicker, and also return from shocks and stressor faster, recover quicker. Everything has to be quicker. So I realized that, in fact, it's impossible to make things quicker, because we're dealing with a world that is extremely complex and there is an element of unknown. So in order for us to really build this readiness that we're looking for, is to develop what you're also calling to be ready for unknown, to develop the capacity for this element of unknown to be integrated to the known, so bringing the unknown to the known.
You see, it's somebody, let's say, comes up with a technique, with some kind of a technique of dealing with stress, right? And they would say, try it out if it works for you. And there is another technique and another technique and another way to basically deal with stressful situations, because there would be no less of them. You know, we cannot script this world. Otherwise, I mean, somehow it's scripted, but somehow there is a space for this spontaneity to happen all the time. And each has to figure out how to deal with it, you know, because this talent for organization, for a certain way, engineering certain things, right? This is also a talent which maybe belong to one individual, but doesn't belong to another one, you know. But when once together, these different talents could be shared for the common benefit, for the common idea to be created. right? It's almost like the opposites when they meet. Uh, there is a great potentiality for something beautiful to happen if these qualities are truly shared in togetherness, right?
That brings,
So, a fully improvising guy and a fully organizing guy, there might be conflict. There could be conflict also, big time. But it could be if there is a common ground for these two opposites to meet, that could be a great potentiality, a wonderful potentiality.
I think this is such an interesting, and I think highly needed topic that you're bringing up to create a consciousness for opposites to exist. Because I think as we're heading to this new future, if you like, or if I can call it a new future, we're going to deal with different types of opposites coming together. The new generation that are really integrated fully with technology, and us, I think that we're just starting to integrate parts of ourselves with technological world. So what would be, what is your vision? What do you think about ways in which we can facilitate such kind of common grounds to create, especially between countries, between generations, between scientists and artists?
I mean, it's a part of actually to go to the basics. It's kind of like how do we deal with our parents? Just this, we don't need to go be very spiritual about all of this. It's like uh, do you help your mama to deal with this new technology? Do you help your papa to deal with this new technology? Because in 30, 40 years, we will be the ones not understanding certain things. And it's not about the family, just the family. It's about strangers also, kind of being open to actually help somebody out without any credit, without any placement on the pedestal. It's just this also. It's these very simple things. And just nowadays we have to deal with technology, but previous generations they had to deal with other things. I'm sure if you speak with our parents, our grandparents, would also would have to say a lot about differences between generations, differences between the countries, differences between us and the neighbors. This is ancient story of being human. Same, just different costume, different setting, different technology, different potentiality, different possibility, but it's just the same thing. But how do I deal with my mama? Do I help her? How do I deal with my papa? Do I have enough of patience to sit there and explain certain things which might be helpful for them? And maybe it's needed not once, maybe it's needed 10 times. You see, but what's the difference between a little boy being a little girl and her parents trying to explain certain things, how to deal in this world? Sometimes it could be traumatic, sometimes it could be very beautiful. It depends on the purpose of this or that connection. Right? So it's let's go to simplicity. Let's just go back to the simplicity. How do we deal with our surroundings? But there is also, we have to deal with all kind of situations. It's this phenomenon of countries and neighbors and parents and generations. This is how would I say? How do we deal with ourselves first of all, even before our mamas, papas, and neighbors and countries? How do I deal with my own kingdom? Right? Because in me, inside this body, there are how many trillions of visitors, of neighbors are living. This is an incredible topic which not that many thinking about, because when we start to think about it, that's the primal thing. to think about, actually. First of all, we are not in charge with our true home, which is at the moment is the only one, kind of only one. But here in this physical story, how do we deal with our home here? How much of it we demolish every day or create or taking care of?
Mhm. I think I cannot help myself but to think about the monkey that you bring with yourself to a performance, right?
Yeah, he's a good companion. He doesn't talk. But sometimes when I have something to say or ask, I will just look at his face and I see, wow, his face is different. Even though it's kind of not supposed to be, right, in this reality. But it is different. Sometimes I see him smiling, or sometimes I see he is actually really sad. So I just wonder, what do I see in that moment? Who do I really see in that moment?
Do you think the fixity, if we can call it fixity, of the monkey somehow allows you to have this reflection, perception side of you at the same time? Because if you see him smiling, somehow you can see an aspect of yourself.
Oops. Could be. What do we see? What do we really see?
Yeah, I think what I meant to say is to does it serve what kind of purpose it serves?
His presence in general?
Mhm.
Well, it's this is not something you can plan in a way. When a gift been given, the gift is there, right? So when not every gift needs to be accepted, right? But not every gift also need to be carried around. There are so many kind of gifts, and all kind of gifts that come around. But this one, when he came, this kind of brought lots of beautiful questions up, right? And somehow he sticked around. There are many kind of things people bring all the time, but this one came not during the concert. It was really came out of a beautiful meeting with some family. There was kind of a gift from the family, and it's a dear friends that I know, and that I stayed with them a few times. So it was kind of the consequence of our cosmic monkeys meeting, because it's representation of being a child, being spontaneous, being open, being mad, being constantly in some sort of flow of life, right? Because not for nothing, in the Mayan calendar, if you look in the Mayan calendar, the Hunapku, the center of the universe, as Mayans believed about, it's the monkey.
Mhm.
It's a child, right? So, of course, monkeys have all kind of aspects. There is, we can dig into it. There is so much into it, but that's what it is for me, and it's been a great companion, a silent companion that brings all kind of questions without saying a word, which is the most genius thing. Without words, there could be so many questions and answers as well.
So, what do you think about future? What are your plans for future? What is the vision? What do you envision to do with your music?
Interesting that you say such a word, vision, because that's exactly my current state of being, about envisioning the future tour, which will happen only in 1 year from now, because that's kind of my year off situation, which was really needed, and it's important for everyone to stop from time to time. And actually, in what way this expression will continue, I have no idea right now. It's too early because it's in the process of evolving. In what? I don't know. I just trust it completely, full-heartedly. And there are ideas, of course, there are many ideas for what could be, as a solo performance, as a solo expression, as a collective expression as well. All kind of ideas, Actually, today they are launching the Time of the Sixth Sun movie worldwide. Actually, tonight. So it's interesting we speak about that. So that's also will have some sort of consequences on my life because I've been quite involved in this project. And I don't know, at the moment, what I'm really learning and relearning is how to take care of this vehicle, how to take care of this kingdom, where countless citizens live together. That's what I have to figure out because it's been not an easy ride because I had a car accident some years ago and I still been kind of under this influence. Of course, when some event like that happens, you would have to deal with the consequences of it, physical consequences, but then you would normally go to dig what was the reason for such. And of course, I've been digging and digging and digging and digging and digging, But I do see also. That's what I say now. I feel it's really important also just the physicality of things, really grounded physicality, simple grounded physicality aspects. So this is my process. I'm still on it, even though I've been experiencing it quite intensely for many years already. I still had to continue to do my thing on stage, off stage, touring, full power, delivering this sound. But I do feel it's nicely changing right now. Into what? We will see in 1 year, because that's when I will get on stage again. Then we will see what it become. For now it's too early. It's in the process.
Thank you for sharing. I think what I pick up from what you just said is this the element of trusting what this gift or this expression of you has for you, and also learning to ground the. I really like the expression you use as the kingdom. I really believe that within of we are too many. We are not just I. There is a we element in us, and I think learning to relate from the place of collective that exists in us into singularity of being. I think this is maybe the critical moment of realizing what it means to live consciously. With that said, what are the practices? Do you do any rituals? Do you follow any practices that allow you to be more grounded, be more present, especially when you want to be on stage and have such intense degree of focus?
Being on stage, there is no problem because there is no inner battle is happening there. I trust it every time, even sometimes when I miss a note, if I would say that like that, this is also fine. For me in that state, everything is fine. But being off stage, that's where the complicated part comes. That's why many artists, they cannot take it. That's why we've seen so many suicides over the decades of some incredible ones are leaving early. They could create so much more. They could share so much more. Jimi Hendrix left so young. He could do so much more, but this is the reality of it, and it's really difficult to get from that high space back to the ground and do this all kind of stuff. This is complicated to be human. So this is what I'm learning at the moment, because in the previous years I would play 4 seasons. I would do like when I've been on the streets, there was this always a mixture of struggle, survival, creativity, art, communication, meeting the world, meeting people, cultures, languages, places, and then I would play 4 seasons, pretty much. Yeah, I would go to India every winter, and then I would go to Mexico or some other places. Yeah? And this time around, when I'm not doing this, I have to deal with my daily routines. So I do some yoga, I do some breathing exercises. I started to do some qigong as well, which seems like probably one of the most uh, grounding tools I've found so far. The breath, right? So, and movement, because it's another kind of movement. When there is a guitar playing going on, there is a lot of movement, but it's been in a seated position. Even though I love some other aspects of it when we can move really the body, so, but for this period of my touring life, it has been more of a seated concept, which I feel also is changing at some point into something else as well, not just, but this is also important, the seated experience. Beautiful, that's very beautiful also. But I feel it's nice also to move the body, super nice. So this is how I am at the moment, exploring my daily life, grounding, and living in a simple, small village. Pretty much not socializing so much, not going places, and really taking it one step at a time until I feel it's time to go somewhere. Or I've been called to go somewhere because that's part of my life also, not just being a guitar player. So this is what it is at the moment. I'm quite also curious what it would be. For now, this is what, and meeting new friends. Sometimes I meet new friends. I meet new friends too.
No, I developed also this capacity to see the smile, and yeah, I think I really resonate with what you said. I mean, my life has also been kind of similar in the sense that I learned to listen to the tempo of life that calls me. I think every life calls each of us in a different way based on maybe the unique expression that we carry in this particular lifetime. And I resonate with what you say, to just being very open to and listen to what life is wanting from us and what is gifting to us, and the participation that we're part of, the realization of this participation. I had also a chance of watching, I think, one of the episodes of the Sixth Son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you watch the film, the whole film, or not?
Not yet. No, just some episodes. I had this opportunity to watch them. So I wanted to ask you to speak a little bit about it for the audience. So if they want to explore it, what it is about, how did you come about the idea?
I didn't come about the idea. It was actually quite amazing because when I met Luna, Nikki Williams, actually the director of the film, she proposed me to be in the film, which she's been already kind of making it because she was traveling all over the world and filming all kind of incredible people, scientists, some spiritual explorers, some children, some artists, some elders, shamans, all kinds of incredible people. And she basically asked me to be this troubadour in the story, which kind of like it's a documentary, so there was not much to be apart from, yes, certain scenes we had to think about, but most of it was just spontaneous. We were driving by the sunflower field, and they were like, oh, that's a good moment, so we could go do a scene with sunflowers, but what will happen there, we didn't know. So there were many situations like this. And basically she was filming it with an idea to complete for this great date of 21st of December 2012, right? Where there was the end of time, many said, but of course there was not the end of time, but it was the date that was kind of driving her creativity forward, because she wanted to deliver it for this special day, but it never happened. And actually the film was waiting until its first release this April. So it's been 7 years, still ongoing development and edit and preparation, and thinking how to deliver it correctly to the world through certain marketing way that is still clean and available, but in the same time still covering some of the expenses that she had to um, take from certain investors, right? I mean, some people had to invest into it anyway and support the project. So anyway, there is some responsibility to it to cover some of it, but still the main message of the film is kind of like question this whole game, and to observe this whole game and just see that certain things are not working in this game, and who is responsible for that. It's not just us and them, but it's us in general, all of us, right? And kind of reviewing that and probably adjusting, readjusting, and making different steps towards this collective experience. And so that's what this film is about. So of course there is lots of incredible speakers in the film, and the idea of me being there, it's kind of like an idea of any man. Of course, it's just this man happened to be this traveling musician, right? But it could be any man that experience the same questions, daily questions. What am I doing here? What am I doing with my life? Yeah, what's this life is about? What am I doing here? So it's, unless we are completely numb in this world and arrogant, each of us would be asking these questions. And even the very numb, arrogant people eventually also asking these questions. So, it's just a trigger to ask certain questions to ourselves. And this film is right now available from tonight for, I think, 72 hours. It will be free for everybody to watch. If you register, you can watch it. It's free. And then, of course, whoever wants to buy this whole thing, there is a whole package. There is 8 documentaries about all kind of topics. But there is a main film. And there is so much love being placed into it. This is not a Hollywood production. This was done purely by heart, by her and so many others who were supporting it. And really a special experience it has been for me, because also when I met her, she basically invited me to jump on the train of a project that, when I was part of it already, I've seen that, wow, we have done with my friends in India and Goa. We were doing musical, we were doing some other performances which had some sort of a fairy tale aspect to it, right? Because there were many performers all the time, fire dancers and clowns and jugglers and storytellers and all kind of musicians. And in there, it's like on the film set, sometimes I would think, wow, we have just done that a year ago in India. Or we just filmed that idea just before, and she had no idea that I've experienced that. A collective potentiality already in a creative way, right? Not as a film, but as a performance, or as a little poetic sketch, or a video, or as a musical as well. So there's been a lot of synchronicity, and it's still ongoing. So this is quite a big chapter of my life, but it's everything is ongoing. So, you know, quite amazing, quite amazing.
Speaking about this journey of life, this experience, I think every artist, every visionary, every um, person that is delivering such a refined degree of creativity at the way that you are, have had key people on their way, people that have changed their perspective, people who have been so critical in their expression of the music, art, or craft, or what have you. What are those kind of people? Who are those people in your life? If you would,
You mean the critiques?
the key people in your life that have enabled you to basically arrive to this degree of expression, people who have been so critical in your life, that have changed your perception.
I see. I understood first if, who are were the people, the critical people, you know, the people who are also actually
Critical people, if you would share.
also because I do remember the time when I just started to play, and my musical partner at the time, he would say, you know, what are you doing? You know, you play, it's all like, I cannot follow you, you know, because you're jumping from play. And I said, I don't know what to do, you know, because I don't know how it's supposed to be. I go purely by the feeling. And he had knowledge. So he would say, you know, go and practice until 5 in the morning, then you might get somewhere. And actually, I was taking it really hard, you know, and in the same time, that's exactly what I was doing anyway. You know, actually, I was staying in the time somewhere in New York, you know, I was wandering around New York, and then everywhere I would sit or wait for the bus or train or anything, or staying in a place. At the time I lived with this grandmama who couldn't hear really well, so I could actually play until 5 in the morning every day, anyway. So the critic part of it also could be good, and unless it's actually really disturbed my inner knowing what needs to be done. Because there were also those who would come, like from my really dear circle of friends, you know, would come and say, oh, you need to play something more like recognizable, or you need to play something more in happy chords that people more cheered up, you know. And I couldn't do that, you know, unless it's truthful to myself, unless I truly feel that, I cannot do that, you know. So these are the aspects of the critical aspects, you know, that sometimes can turn into really positive aspects, right? But I do feel that, and I do know, and I do remember those countless meetings that brought me to a new space.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably what we would call change in perception, you know. Um, this can happen through intaking of some substances, you know, some LSD or some peyote or ayahuasca, or there are so many aspects of this possibility, but there is also just some really incredible meetings that can take place that can shift that perception.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of feel like, whoa, I really dramatically been shifted right now into another version.
Mm-hmm.
So this happened many times, and hopefully it will happen many more times. Because if that happens, we are on the right track. That means that we are open to life, and life provides these possibilities, which is not separate from what we are, because we are life in a way, right? So if that happens, it's a gift, it's a present, you know, and that's what we really feel, that that's when we really feel alive, basically. Even sometimes it could be difficult, you know, sometimes could be not easy to comprehend what actually is happening at that moment, right? When this change happens.
And I think this is, we're arriving to the end of our conversation in this series of podcasts, that this, the importance of developing this readiness for paradigm shifts to happen, because really we really need those shifts of perceptions to occur.
Really?
I think so, as
If
collective.
we, yeah, but if we will be getting ready for this shift, then we will miss out every possible step that we are on doing in this moment. We cannot be getting ready for some sort of a change to happen. It's like waiting for the morning every night and not sleeping.
In a way, maybe I have to kind of rephrase being ready. The state of readiness is that being acutely tuned to this moment. So for a change to occur in our perception, we have to be ready in a state of receptivity. So to be receptive for change. Um,
Right. But again, it's like when a gift comes around, when a present comes around, and you were not expecting it, right? It just, boom, wow, right?
yes.
Um, in that moment, you could not see it. You could not. There is a possibility that we cannot see it. We cannot even recognize it because we are too absorbed in some device, maybe, or something else. Or we're just busy, basically, right? Or could be we are full of everything and we cannot see it also because there is no space for it. So I guess it's a whole like a kind of like a fully wow, it's kind of like a factory that is constantly in motion of purifying itself, opening, making space, detoxing, uh, bringing new things in, work them out, break them down, again detoxing, cleaning up, again opening. So it's like a constant flow of emptying, being busy, being available, not being available, processing. This is like a constantly working mechanism of uh, of, of ourselves that is because sometimes we do miss things. Sometimes we are not available for certain things. Sometimes we have to take more time to process certain things. It's maybe just to do the closure of the story. I'll tell you a short story. I just met a dear friend, and he told me that he met this incredible woman recently, and she had with her husband about 15 kids over the years. She passed recently, and my friend basically asked her, "Wow, it's like it's been really. It looks like you've had such a busy life, like." And she was already over her 80s, way more over 80s, at that moment when they met. And he basically said, "Wow, did you feel like some depression or some breakdowns over these periods, because 15 kids to have over the lifetime, it's incredible." And she said, "Of course, I felt it all." And then she'd taken some year off basically to kind of totally be with her own self, and they had to deal with themselves for some time. But this is not the point. Why I'm saying this story is that she said, "I've experienced all of it, but I had no time to be depressed or to go into my mental thinking so much. There was no time for that, because if there is this amount of kids who need to be fed and educated and so on, so on, so on, so on. There is no time for this kind of stuff. So I feel like this is where this balance comes in. We are too much in our heads trying to figure it all out, while we could be just doing proper physical work which needs to be done, really grounded, really to the point. with no airy fairy stuff. You know, it's all kind of has to come to this balance. You know, but as well creating space for questions when it's needed as well. Of course, everything is good in its space and time configuration. But yeah, I think just we, you know, if we would live in a different time zone, different times, different century, we also wouldn't have so much time. I think now, because we have electricity, we have hot water, you know, just these little things, they're already changing the whole thing. Imagine older days, the man had to go chop the wood, a woman had to go collect the wood, you know, you had to boil the water, you had to, I mean, this is like a complete, how many hours everything takes, you know, it's really incredible how much um, free time we could have nowadays, which humanity couldn't have in other centuries, and how much we're not knowing how to deal with that time. So I would guess this is part of this pendulum story, kind of going back to it, you know, the pendulum of extremes. At certain place, it needs to find its balance, not the dead point, like you said. Of course not. You know, you said it right. It doesn't need to stop, not at all, but kind of find its way that it's not as extremely overwhelming. Not an easy thing to be human being, but somehow we all signed up for it.
That's so true. That's so true. We somehow all signed up for it, and I think there is togetherness in this difficulty of being human.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. It's been really a pleasure to share this moment with you. And thank you for the audience for wanting to hear more of the podcast. And I wish you all the best. And I look
Thanks.
forward to hearing from more of your music and your success.
Yeah. And thank you for your work as well. I keep an eye on what you share with the world, which is quite amazing way to combine the spirituality science in quite a delicate way. So keep going, and thank you.
Very much. Thank you.
And to be continued, I guess, at some point. Yeah.
Thank
Thank you.
you so much.